Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this special called meeting of the House Standing Committee on Judiciary. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Present.
Representative Bratcher.
Here in the room.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Decker.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Fisher.
Here in the room.
Representative Hebron.
Present in the room.
Representative Kulkarni.
Present in the room.
Representative Lewis.
Present in the room.
Representative Maddox.
Present in the room.
Representative McCoy.
Here.
Representative Minter. Representative Mosier. Representative Nemes.
Here.
Representative Petrie. Representative Scott.
Present.
Representative Stevenson.
Present.
Representative Banta.
Present in the room.
Chairman Massey.
Here in the room. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go over my general rules for this committee. First and foremost, if you have a cell phone with you, please turn it to quiet or vibrate. We try to not let those phones interfere with the equipment. Secondly, the microphones that are at the presenters' tables. Please make sure that they are on and that you pull them close to you when speaking into them so that we can record all of the information. Thirdly, we're not permitted to have any signage in the room. I don't see any, but we're not permitted to have any signage in the room. Fourth, if you've signed up to speak, they'll be delivering that sign-up sheet up here to me. We will probably keep it somewhat brief because at least for one of these bills, we've heard it in interim, we've heard it previously, and so with regards to that, we'll probably keep the comments brief and not repetitive. With that, the order we're going to call the bills in today is as follows. We will start with House Bill 730. We will then move to House Bill 31, and we will wrap up today with House Bill 136. And with that, I'm going to invite those on House Bill 730 to come to the podium, to come to the table. And I know we have Representative Bray and I believe Representative Hebron. And as they're coming, I know that we have a House Committee substitute on House Bill 730.
Motion on the sub.
We have a motion on the sub by Representative Nemes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Representative Banta. All in favor of the committee sub signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There is none. With that, representatives, you may proceed.
I am Josh Bray, representative of House District 71.
Samara Hebron, House District 18.
I would like to think that the crowd here is because of the interest in House Bill 730, but somehow I kind of doubt that. So what this bill does and what the committee sub does is over the summer started having some issues with our from my local sheriff's department. I'd attended a fiscal court meeting, and they were there to request more funding because they were having to transport 202A patients further than what the regulation calls for. And so began talking about what we could do to kind of look at those districts. They haven't been evaluated since at least the 80s, in 25 years. And so what the committee sub does is it requires the cabinet to redraw these districts, taking into consideration distance traveled, census data, hospital loads, that kind of stuff. It would be a great help, just kind of as an example, currently by reg, if you have a 202A patient in Rockcastle County, you're ordered to take them to Hazard if Hazard's full. And so that to Hazard's about an hour and a half drive. So we've got two deputies having to transport a patient an hour and a half. If Hazard's full, they have to go to Harlan or Prestonsburg, which is 2.5 hours at best. When Lexington's 40 minutes up the road, the city of Ashland or Boyd County, they have to take them to Ashland. With the opening of a Prestonsburg facility from ARH, that would save them about 80 minutes round trip.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion on the bill. Representative Nemes, who is second? Representative McCoy. All right. I'm looking for questions. Representative Kulkarni.
Just a quick question. I don't see the committee sub.
My understanding is it was sent out by email. We have sent a staff member to go get printed copies. And and part of that was because of just the special call meeting. But that's what he was trying to explain. I will try to add to that momentarily, and then hopefully we'll get the copies here in just a moment.
Thank you.
So I worked with this group as they were doing it. One of the problems we've had in Kentucky, which has become a huge problem, is the cost of transportation and tying up our public officials, whether it be EMS or sheriff's members, and trying to take people to facilities that can house or deal with their concerns. And because of that, we are trying to find ways in bringing all of these people together to lessen the cost to the taxpayers and to free up the time of the emergency services and the sheriff's departments so they can go about their other work. Obviously, if they're away doing one of these 202A transports, then they're not doing something else. So that was the purpose of this. The reason it's come down to a one-page committee sub, I believe, is because we have not yet reached the point that we could get everybody in consensus on a very complex problem that they will continue to work on as we go forward. With that, I'll turn it back over to the presenters because they might be able to answer the question much better than I can.
Well, and just kind of, Representative Kulkarni, it's a great question. I appreciate it. So it was an 18-page bill, and we took it down to, I think it's a page and maybe a quarter now. The process really started in July, and so this has been an active working group during the interim, and we've had 5 specific groups of people, of stakeholders that were involved in this, and that includes law enforcement, public officials, CMHCs, hospitals, advocates, and CHFS. And so when we started looking at 202A, because I think, when this was created in the 1980s, mental health wasn't talked about. Obviously, it's still hard to talk about in 2022, but we're starting to try to work on it more and bring the conversation to light, especially here in the Kentucky General Assembly. And so 202 truly does need an overhaul. We're just not at the point where we're ready to release this language until everyone's more happy about it. Because I think that this is starting the conversation that we need to move mental health away from being criminal unless the person has actually been charged criminally. In other words, I don't know that these people need to be picked up by a law enforcement officer. And so with that conversation, we just still have more work to do. And after talking to several of the hospitals and community mental health centers, I think they feel the same way. And so with this, I think that it does help on the transportation issue in regards to making sure they get to the correct hospital regionally. But there's just so much work that needs to be done. And while we've put in the effort for several months, we're just not there yet. And both Representative Bray and I, we don't want to put out a legislation just to say, hey, let's put a sticky tape on this or a Band-Aid. We actually want this to be meaningful legislation. And I want to say today I was really touched. Steve Shannon stopped me in the hallway. He's been a big part of this working group. And he said, in my lifetime in the 25 years I've been here, 2 legislators have worked on this. I was like, oh, who? And he was like, you and Representative Bray. And so I do recognize that this is a heavy lift, but it's something we're really interested in because it affects us locally. This came up with my sheriff walking up to me one day in both Grayson County and Hardin County. And they were like, Samara, we don't have the manpower to be able to deal with this. And, when we're gone 12 hours at a time, but is this really the way that we need to be dealing with mental health issues? So a long answer for the question, but just kind of put in perspective, this is something that Representative Bray, even though we're a few miles apart in districts, it's something that affects the entire Commonwealth.
Thank you.
And we will have those to you momentarily. I will also tell you, Representative, that part of this is a record-keeping thing with the facilities to make sure we can get the data and hold them accountable, to make sure that the facilities that we're transporting to are actually appropriate facilities to house these types of persons. So, Representative Scott, did you have an additional question?
No, it was the same thing. Thank you.
We do have the committee subs coming around to you. I'm going to give you about a minute, if that's okay, just to take a look at the sub to make sure there's no questions. And I know that McCoy's already looking at his watch. And we do have a member of our committee that has a celebration this evening. And so we have to get out at a reasonable time to celebrate that individual. So I want you to look at it, though, and we'll give you just a moment, and then we'll call for the vote unless there's further questions.
I would like to thank Representative Mosher on the committee as well. She is with House Bill 777, Representative Fleming's bill. It does create a task force working group to talk about transport. And so she's been willing to include 202A presentation, and we're greatly thankful for that.
Also, I've just been pointed out to me that the committee sub actually mirrors mostly of Section 8 of the original bill. So you do have the original bill in front of you, so it does mirror Section 8. So while we're doing that, is that prompted any additional questions that we need to discuss here today before calling for a vote? All right, if there's no further questions or concerns, Madam Secretary, did I hear someone? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Blanton,
Aye.
Representative Bratcher,
Yes.
Representative Cantrell, Representative Decker,
Yes.
Representative Elliott,
Aye.
Representative Fisher,
Yes.
Representative Hebron,
Yes.
Representative Cole-Carney,
Yes.
Representative Lewis,
Yes.
Representative Maddox,
Yes.
Representative McCoy,
Yes.
Representative Mincher,
Yes.
Representative Mosier,
Yes.
Representative Nemus,
Yes.
Representative Petrie, Representative Scott,
Yes.
Representative Stevenson, Chairman Massey.
Yes, there being 17 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 pass, the same will be reported with favorable expression that the same should pass on the House floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
The next bill we are going to call is House Bill 31. And House Bill 31, I know that I saw this bill presented in the interim by Representative Scott and a group of students, I believe. But we're going to ask her to come to the table. And when she's ready, she can identify herself and bring her guest forward. Introduce yourself, Representative, and your guest, and you may proceed when ready.
Thank you so much, Chairman and committee. I've got some amazing guests with me who are actually much more important to hear from. So you will hear from them in just a moment. They're some of my favorite people in the whole wide world. But I just want to share with you a little bit of background very quickly. Y'all know I don't take too much time in committee, so I won't do that today either. But I do want to share a little context about the Crown Act. So race-based hair discrimination is the denial of educational and employment opportunities because of hair texture or protective hairstyles, including braids, locks, twists, and Bantu knots. We already know that Black students and students of color are disproportionately affected by school suspension and expulsion. No student should be met with discretionary discipline actions in school, especially when it comes to the way they wear their hair. I wear a protective style because it is better for my health and wellness. To not apply heat to my hair with a straightening comb or chemicals to my scalp to straighten my hair. I worked at Subway and wore a hairnet. My son worked at White Castle, where many employees who worked cooking food wore nets. Flowers Baking Company employees in Bardstown wear hairnets. My surgeon wore a hairnet when he did my surgery. That will still be the case with this bill. The Crown Act stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. Thank you to Vice Chair Banta and Representatives Bojanowski, Brown, Fleming, Flood, Hatton, Jenkins, Kulkarni, Marzian, Jerry Miller, Minter, Nemus, Raymond, Roberts, Sherlin Stevenson, Pam Stevenson, Wheatley, and Wilner for signing on as co-sponsors of House Bill 31. It matters that Kentuckians see legislators from across our Commonwealth who reject racial discrimination. Kentuckians have a right for something as innocuous as their hair to be accepted and respected, whether they are at work, looking for work, or they are in school. Michigan State University conducted a study recently that found Black women face the highest incidences of hair discrimination and that 80% felt they needed to switch their hair in order to align with unhealthy and unrealistic standards in order to fit in at work. If you watched the 19-minute documentary that I sent to you, the story of a Kentuckian who faced hair discrimination at work was a core part of the feature. Dina had recently given birth and returned to work wearing box braids, a protective hairstyle, so that she could be the best mom possible to her newborn baby and also get back to work without the burden of stressing about her hair. Dina's employer asked her to change her hair because it was too fashion forward. When my daughter was 15 and preparing to start her sophomore year in high school, we went to orientation to pick up all of the new school year documents. Shockingly, she was met with the new dress code policy, which read, no dreadlocks, cornrows, twists, mohawks, and no jewelry can be worn in hair. These are hairstyles that have deep historical significance in my culture. Beyond the cultural importance of these hairstyles, there is the need to protect our hair from chemicals and heat damage. This discretionary dress code had a negative impact on my daughter and many of her classmates, especially their outlook about school and their sense of belonging. Sadly, employers, schools, and places of public accommodation have restricted or stigmatized Black hairstyles for years. It strips people of their dignity and inflicts financial, physiological, and psychological harm.
Motion on the bill.
Oh, thank you so much.
We have a motion on the bill and a second. So at this point, I know there's going to be some additional presentation. So I'm going to let them. I don't want to not let students present if they are here. I think we're about kids in this General Assembly, and we want to make sure that students or kids can present if they prepared for this testimony. So as soon as they do that, we'll take any questions and we'll vote.
So they just told me to stop talking because they want to hear from you and not me. So make sure your green light is on when you speak, and pull the mic to you.
Hello, my name is Deanna McMillan. I'm 12 years old, and I go to Grace James Academy of Excellence. I'm asking you for support for the Crown Act, which is HB 31. It's supported by bipartisan support, Chairman Westerfield, Senator McGarvey, and filled by and supported by Representative Erica Scott, and co-sponsored by Representative Kim Banta. My hair defines me because it's big, and it makes me more confident. But 2 weeks ago, my confidence was lost. 2 weeks ago, my step coach told everyone they had to wear their hair straightened in a ponytail. Look at this picture. This is the picture they want our hair to be and be the same. As you can see, my hair doesn't grow straight. And I was told that if my hair wasn't straightened, I would stick out and look different from everyone else. This made me feel like the way my hair grows wasn't good enough as it is now. Adults shouldn't make me feel like I'm less than because of the way my hair grows. Do you know that in order my hair to be straightened, it costs time and money because it's not an easy process. It's not healthy for my hair. My confidence was gone until my mom spoke to me and told me that if I'm fighting for the Crown Act, HB 31, then I have to tell people when they are wrong, even adults. My coach is wrong, and I'm not going to get my hair straightened. I'm going to wear my hair the way that it's naturally grown. I have speech problems and physical disabilities. That has led me having many operations. And what I've learned is that I can help other young kids like me. My hair is me, and I should be able to let my curls pop. So I'm asking you, will you say yes by supporting the Crown Act? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Jariah McMillan. I'm 15 and I go to W.E.B. Du Bois Academy. I am asking you for your support for your supporting the Crown Act. The Crown Act, which is HB 31, has bipartisan support of Senator Whitney Westerfield, Senator Morgan McGarvey, and Representative Attica Scott and Representative Kim Banta. This is a major problem and we need to fix it, which is why I'm here talking to you today. Adults or businesses should not be able to tell us what is professional and when it comes to our hair. Now I got a question. Do y'all like mullets? Do you think mullets take away the ability for us to learn or perform how well we do in sports? Well, most people may think mullets are ugly, but that's just your opinion. And if y'all didn't know, Meade County baseball team, their team had mullets. Their whole team had mullets. And they was told that they could not finish their baseball season and their season will be cut short if they did not all cut off their mullets, which was wrong. And that was the way of them showing their bond. The same way is with Ballard's cheerleading team, which is a school in JCPS, and they cheerleading coach told them that they all had to put on wigs or they could not finish their season. Now, I am here today to tell y'all that the Crown Act can not only protect African Americans, it would protect all races from being discriminated against their hair. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Keyshawn Johnson, and I am a 9th grader at the historically black Central High School, and I am a law student. Today I am here to ask for your support by saying yes to the Crown Act. Your vote is needed because it could be the change to protect against race-based discrimination. It is supported by Senator McGarvey in Westerfield, Representative Edgar Scott, and Representative Kim Benta. It is supported by It has bipartisan support. It has already been passed unanimously in Covington, Kentucky, and Louisville. Many companies are starting to change their policy. For example, UPS changed their policies, and now UPS allows employees to wear natural hairstyles and beards. UPS now allows its employees to wear beards longer hair and natural hairstyles like afros, braids, locks, twists, and knots. This is important to me because I am a young black teen that is growing into a great young man, and I wear my hair in many different styles. With me wearing my hair in these styles, I get looked like as a thug, and me being African American, I already get stereotyped, so my hair should just get looked like as my crown. I go to the some things that people don't know about me is that I'm an honor roll student, so please don't judge a book by its cover. I am a law student at the historically black Central High School in Louisville, Kentucky. And there are many styles that I see from a day-to-day basis. From different colors, textures, and styles, this is a way that people express themselves. So if HB 31 is not passed, this could keep taking away people's freedom and happiness. So today, with that being said, we are asking for your support by passing HB 31. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions. Representative Decker.
Yes, thank you. I have met several times with Representative Scott and enjoyed each conversation, and I thank you for talking with me. I've also talked with several of you who are on the panel today, and I've appreciated that. I am sorry that you have felt discriminated against because of your hairstyle. I think that, and I remember on your sheet that you gave out, Representative Scott, you talked about girls who were going to a school and then they wanted to straighten their hair. Well, I can tell you I have often wanted to curl mine because of how beautiful that is by other people. I don't think that was race discrimination that I had felt, but just social pressure. So I believe the bill, as I've expressed to you, goes too far. By amending the Kentucky Civil Rights Act, this will apply to all public and private employers. And so, according to federal law, federal courts have decided that employment discrimination on the basis of race does not include changeable hairstyles. Until this point, and until Congress changes that law, which they are working on, the changeable hairstyles are a matter of preference. It is the immutable characteristics of people that are protected by federal law and the Civil Rights Act. Our Constitution in Kentucky and in the United States also does protect private property rights, and that would include the rights of employers to hire whom they want at their business, absent racial discrimination, which does not include immutable hairstyles. But if we pass this bill, we will be elevating hair preferences in style over the private business owner's rights to employ whom he or she desires. So at this point, Kentucky is an at-will state, which means that employers can hire and fire whomever they wish. If this bill is passed, it will elevate that, and we will elevate a desire for a hairstyle over the personal property rights of the business owners. I've appreciated our conversations. I ask if you would limit this bill to one that applies to schools and government organizations. I understand why you said no, but I appreciate the conversation, and I regret the need to say no to these beautiful children, young people, but I just feel like it is unconstitutional to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. And I will say that protective styles, a lot of people don't understand what a protective style is, and that's what I wear. So it's not something that I change even from year to year. I've had this for decades because it's safer and healthier for me not to use chemicals, which are very dangerous for me to put on my scalp, or to use a straightening comb to straighten my hair, which will burn my hair. So this is a protective style. So I just wanted to clarify that for people who are wondering what that means. Thank you, Rep.
I do have another question I'm going to ask, but I do also have some people that signed up. All of them that signed up were in support of it, but one is asked to testify. So I'm going to briefly let them testify in just a moment. But for now, I'm going to turn to Representative Nemes. You'll wait? Okay. Is it Sullivan? If you want to come up, we'll give you the floor for a moment. And we'll give you just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, to present. Maybe you'll answer some of the comments that have been made. And then we do have another question from Representative Nemes. You may proceed. Identify yourself, and you may proceed.
Good evening. I'm Terrence Sullivan, the Executive Director for the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. And I had a couple things I wanted to share, but I did want to start. I am the director of the Commission on Human Rights, and our agency is actually empowered to enforce Kentucky Civil Rights Act. And we follow KCRA, and we also follow the rules that are put forth by the EEOC to protect the rights of people in the Commonwealth. And this House Bill 31 and the Crown Act falls strictly within our jurisdiction because those are things that we see. Every day we have cases where there could be employers and they use this hair-based discrimination as a proxy for race. And that's something that the Civil Rights Act was enacted to protect against. And so by saying that we only want it to apply to schools or whatever, that's still, this goes within everything that we were established to protect in 1960. The reason that this is important is one thing that I did want to bring up was we look at labor shortages right now, and I know that all of you care about businesses and you care about the workforce. But right now we have cases where people have filed because they've tried to work at a place and then they've been sent home because of the way that their hair grows. And I know personally, I keep my hair short because I knew, and it was reaffirmed to me when I was in law school, that I needed to keep my hair short to look professional. And when I was in school, I wore my hair in twists, and I was told I had to go home and cut them off because it was a distraction. And I did that. I went home and cut them off. And I don't think, if I wouldn't have cut them off, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I think that's disgusting. I think that people should be able to exist as they are in school, in the workplace, when they go out to eat, and they shouldn't be judged by the way that their hair grows out of their head. And so to some of the question, and I think Kylie was going to get to this in her remarks that she had prepared, but there are limits on which employers the EEOC, for example, regulates. And so for really small businesses of 20 or fewer, they might have, they wouldn't be subject to that. But for larger scale employers and not the small private companies, they would be subject to these types of provisions. And so this is something that's necessary. And again, I really don't think I would be where I am if I wouldn't have cut my twists off when I was in middle school. And that should not be something that you should ever have to decide between, is being who you are and being able to be who you want to become. And so by having the Crown Act to protect these people, and you saw them speaking, it's definitely something that's important. And so there are ways, and this has been enacted in other states, and it's just something that's pretty much common sense. And I do want to thank you, Chairman Massey, for calling this. And I want to thank you, Representative Scott, for your tireless efforts to get this heard. I know you've been pushing this since I worked here, and that was a while ago. And I'm just so happy that this is even being heard in committee. And I just urge you all to vote in favor of House Bill 31.
All right, ma'am, if you would like to identify yourself, are you going to briefly testify? We have a couple of questions and we'll move on.
Yes, thank you, sir. My name is Kylie Boss, and I am a legal fellow here at the ACLU of Kentucky. I am also an attorney currently licensed in Maryland and just recently received authorization for supervised practice here in the Commonwealth. And I'm actually published on this issue in William & Mary's Journal of Race, Gender, and Social Justice. My notice entitled Black Heritage, Career Liability, or Civil Rights Issue, discussing the unique employment discrimination specifically, and I really appreciate Representative Decker's comments about the immutability requirement of Title VII. My remarks do address that. Most anti-discrimination statutes, including Title VII, expressly protect against discrimination on the basis of race, sex, religion, and national origin. And states are free to give broader civil rights protections to additional traits like sexual orientation, gender identity, or familial status if they so choose. But the protected characteristics that Title VII covers, it's the floor. And so essentially the immutability requirement, its intention is to universalize these protected traits. However, the reason why the immutability requirement under Title VII is unworkable and antiquated is because it allows for so many forms of elusive and covert. You talked about preferences, Representative Decker. It allows for so many forms of discrimination to remain legal. Even, for example, accent discrimination, that's legal under Title VII and anti-discrimination statutes when it's actually derivative from national origin, for example. And so that's just one example. Here we have dress codes and we have grooming policy standards that exclude people that look like me, Black employees, Black women, and school children. And what that says to people like me, it says that we don't belong in spaces. When we use natural hair and we use it as a proxy for what is professional and what is acceptable, essentially we're using whiteness as a yardstick of what is allowed in the workplace, what should be allowed. And I just want to implore the committee to think about the message we're sending if we don't support the Crown Act. In Brown versus Board of Education, we cared as a society about the message that we sent to children in schools and the harmful and tangible consequences of racial discrimination. Our Supreme Court said that these ramifications of racial discrimination would impose a badge of inferiority. And you heard the students that testified before me so eloquently that this makes them feel less than. Is this the type of message that we're comfortable sending with our children, that they are less than by how they choose to wear their hair naturally? I definitely understand your constitutional concerns with regard to how far this bill goes, Representative Decker. However, Title VII is intended to give protections in the employment context. Crown Act is to cover not only employees but children. And we're not asking for you to create a new federal right. We're asking for you to codify and protect one's right to wear their hair as it naturally grows from their head. This is such an important piece of legislation, and I'm so glad Representative Scott is introducing it and bringing it. Thank you so much for hearing it. It is so important. We have to think about the messages that we're sending to our children and the messages that we send to people who want to do a good job. They want to show up. They want to work. And the way that they wear their hair, we shouldn't police them with these arbitrary and covert and blatantly racist grooming standards and policies. And so for that, I would yield for questions.
Thank you. We do have several questions now. Representative Nemes.
Thank you. I have a question for Director Sullivan. but also I'd like the young folks to come back up, and I have something to say to them, if I might, Mr. Chairman. Director, my understanding is what we're doing here, what the bill would do, is it would not add a category. It would just say within the category that already exists of race discrimination, it would disallow using hair as a wink, wink, nod, nod, or a front or a proxy in the words of the law. But a business could still have cleanliness and safety standards. I think Representative Scott was talking about the hairnet for restaurants. So we could still have standards provided they're university applied to all people. So is that right?
That I couldn't have even said it that well, but that is correct. That it's just really defining or including these protective hairstyles within how we've already defined race and what's already protected. So it's not extending anything. It's just further clarifying that under race, or this is how we can address this. And so it's not extending. It's just making sure that we're clear on what is protected. And again, as Representative Scott said, there are safety standards and all of those things. An employer can use those in how they regulate their policies on how their employees are, how they behave.
And I wanted to comment to Dion's and Jariah and my future colleague in the bar who goes to Central, because he's going to be a lawyer, he tells me. I'm going to judge a book by its cover. And what I see here are three young people who are spectacular. You have a speech impediment. We only know it because you said it. I mean, you guys were terrific. And when I went outside the Capitol the other day and walked across the street, I met with the three of you and some of your colleagues, and I grilled you. I said, tell me why this is important. And you guys were as persuasive as anybody in the General Assembly. So I'm going to judge a book by its cover. And what I see is a young man and a young woman, another young man, who I think are going to be wildly successful. So, proceed through your life with extreme confidence, because I have it in you, and the people behind you do as well. So anyway, thank you for that, and thank you for the clarification, Director.
Thank you.
Representative Bratcher.
The Crown, Representative Scott, Crown, is that an acronym or?
It is. It's creating a respectful and open world for natural hair.
Okay. And then on page 2, section 9, it says race includes traits historically associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture and protective hairstyles. But is 9 just basically talking about hairstyles? Or what does the could not include, not limited? What does that mean?
So it's including hairstyles. So that's what we wanted to make sure that we did with this bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for bringing this. I just need one point of clarification. First of all, I do plan on voting to move this out. Believe it or not, I wasn't always gray-headed, and I had a mullet at one time. So, all right. So, but I do have a question, Director, for you, along the lines of similar to what Representative Nemes said. I know our state police, our National Guard, part of their training and things requires them not to shave their head, but get a pretty close haircut. I think we were allowed a 1/4 inch when I went through. Will this prevent that from being able to continue as part of their training?
So, and I feel like I shouldn't answer that question unless you provide pictures of the mullet. But
there are very few of those in existence, I will say that.
But for jobs like that, especially when they have articulated reasons for why they would have those types of needs. I know, for example, for safety reasons for the military, they have sometimes the close crop requirement, those types of things. They're a little bit more, it's a little bit harder to enforce against those types of things because there's a legitimate purpose that's articulated. So those types of things, if they're uniformly applied, that makes it a little bit more able to be followed. So it shouldn't impact that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Heverin.
Thank you. I just want to comment briefly on the bill. First off, thank you all for advocating on this. Thank you, Representative Scott. And thank you all to the young adults that were here today advocating. I love to see our youth be civically engaged, and this is a prime example of that. during the interim, I am the co-chair on the Commission on Race and Access to Opportunity, which I believe Mr. Sullivan helped with along the way last session. And I think this is a prime example of access to opportunity. I love what you said, that your hair is you, and you should embrace that. We have a lot of hurdles in life that we don't always get to pick, and your hair shouldn't be one of them. And so thank you for your bravery, for standing up today, and thank you for bringing this. I think your hair is a freedom that you get to have. So thank you for that. And I'm going to make my vote today yes in honor of Riley Oleka, my best friend, Dr. O.J. Oleka's little girl, because I don't want to see her grow up in a world where she loses access to opportunity because of her hair and how she was born. So thank you.
Representative Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Scott, for a very impressive presentation. Has the Crown Act been adopted in any other states?
Yes, it's been adopted in more than a dozen states so far.
Okay. And I did have a question for the students. Is Professor Rothstein or Professor Abramson still at Central, coming to Central?
Well, now we're with. My teacher is Joe Gutman.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you for the presentation. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes, and I think those hairstyles are beautiful, so I don't see what the problem at all. So it's a yes.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Decker.
Yes, explain my vote.
Yes.
For the reasons I stated, and for those reasons only, I will be a no. But I do think, and we talked about this today with Representative Scott, I think that the private market will take care of this. I think you all are beautiful. It is perceived that way. I think that our culture is changing, and I do not believe we should abrogate the private property rights when this is already being taken care of in the market. Thank you.
Representative Elliott.
Aye.
Representative Fisher.
Pass.
Representative Heverin.
Yes, proudly.
Representative Kulkarni.
Briefly explain, Chairman. I'm a proud yes, and I want to thank Rep. Scott for bringing this bill and working so hard on it. I want to thank everyone for being here in support, especially our young folks that testified today. I just want to say that most, if not all, of the laws in this country, for the majority of the history of this country, have been rooted in racism, and there are small, incremental steps that we've taken to get us to this point in 2022, moving further and further towards equity and fairness, and I think this bill is one big step along those lines. So thank you all for moving us forward today.
Representative Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Maddox.
Pass.
Representative McCoy.
Explain my vote.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, as somebody who almost has a mullet, I'm proud to vote yes.
Representative Minter.
Briefly explain my yes vote, please. I'm voting yes today because everyone deserves the right to be who you are while becoming what you want to be. Proud to vote yes.
Representative Mosier.
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing this to us today. This has been a really enlightening conversation, and I agree that you all look beautiful. And I'm a little jealous that I have to flat iron my hair every day, and and as you were talking, and by the way, I'm a yes vote, but as you were presenting, I was thinking, and not exactly an employer, but how I continually tell my 5 boys to get a haircut and clean up their act. I would like to address some of the concerns that were raised. I would like to see perhaps a clarification, but for today, I am a yes, and I thank you all for coming today.
Representative Nemes.
Yes.
Representative Petrie. Representative Scott.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson.
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes.
My 6-year-old daughter came home in tears and begged me to take the braids out of her hair because the teacher had made her stand up in front of the room so the other kids could touch braids. She was humiliated and felt like she didn't belong. And then when I was in the military, I had braids, and my commanding officer told me to take them out. And I said no, so they made a regulation so it would be an order for me to take them out. So I took them out. And now they don't have that same regulation. So I proudly vote yes.
Chairman Massey.
Yes. 13. There being 14 yes votes, 1 no vote, and 2 pass, the same will be reported with favorable expression that the same shall pass on the House floor. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, young people, for your great presentation, and you may proceed. So thank you. Our remaining bill on the day, which has certainly drawn some folks as well, no surprise, has been heard before in prior sessions, has been heard in the interim, and is now going to be heard in committee for a vote today, and that's House Bill 136. We do have a committee sub on this bill.
Motion on the sub.
We have a motion on the sub by Representative McCoy, a second by Representative Hebron. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There's none. Representative Nemes, when you're set up and prepared, you can identify yourself and your guest and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jason Nemes, representative for the 33rd District, which is Jefferson, Oldham, Shelby.
Representative Al Gentry from House District 46.
Eric Crawford from Mason County.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you calling the bill. This is House Bill 136. This is the medical cannabis bill. We've talked about this a number of times. It passed in 2020 through this committee overwhelmingly, and it passed on the House floor with over 68% of the vote. The Senate was discussing it, and COVID got in the way. We're back at the table here today. Mr. Chairman, I think the debate is over with respect to whether or not medical cannabis helps people. I don't think there's anybody, even the staunchest opponents, that say that it doesn't help some people. Some have objections, and I'll get into address some of those particular objections. But I don't think anybody says that it doesn't help anyone. I think that debate is in the past. There are 37 states that have medical cannabis laws. That includes Mississippi, that includes Alabama, that includes Oklahoma, that includes a whole lot of other states. But Kentucky will not be the only state in the South, and it will not be the only conservative state that has medical marijuana when we pass the bill, hopefully this session. But that doesn't mean Kentucky should pass it. That means Kentucky should have the right bill. We went to work on this bill, Representative Gentry and I and others, Eric Crawford, on the shoulders of Representative John Sims, who is here today, and we made this bill very tight, very Kentucky specific. It's tighter than I would like, I must say. But I wanted to start with that before I go into what's in the bill just a little bit. I'll also say by way of preface, I do not support recreational marijuana. I have never used marijuana in my life. If my sons use marijuana recreationally, there's going to be some big problems with mom and dad. I do not support recreational marijuana. I believe in medical marijuana. What this bill does is it sets up four businesses. It has the farmers, the folks that grow the product. It has the people who process the product. That's the second. And it has the dispensaries. Somebody can get 1, 2, or 3 of those licenses. Then it has a fourth one, which is the safety tester. There can be no, pardon the pun, there can be no cross-pollination. If you're a safety tester, that's all you can be. No physician, no pharmacist that's involved. No one can be involved in this industry if they're involved in another way. So a physician cannot have an ownership interest, if you will, in a dispensary, for example. The physician-patient relationship must exist. It must be a bona fide physician-patient relationship. There has to be, at the front end, there has to be a relationship. The physician has to be approved by the Kentucky Medical Association. They have to be reapproved every year. Everything that they log on behalf of their patient, everything they recommend on behalf of their patients, they have to log into CASPER, so law enforcement and the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure and the Kentucky Board of Nursing can look at those things, just like we do with opioids. This bill, Mr. Chairman, ain't no joke. This is a law enforcement heavy, this is a medication heavy bill. This is not a wink, wink, nod, nod to get to recreational. I don't want to slouch toward recreational. We have a pharmacist role here. Pharmacist role here because we stole from the best states, the best components of the bills from every state. And I think the best state perhaps is Connecticut, and we stole their pharmacist provisions. What we do there is a dispensary, Representative Lewis, has to have a collaborative agreement with a pharmacy, with a pharmacist. And the pharmacist has to see the patient before, just to make sure that all the medication that they're using doesn't have negative side effects. They have to meet with the pharmacist, and so they can go over the whole care that the patient is receiving. We also have home rule. And what does that mean in this bill? So once we pass this bill this session, it will go into effect on July the 1st. Now, there have to be some administrative regulations put in place, and so people won't be able to get the medication on July the 1st, but it will be legal July the 1st, and then there will be a process to get it into actuality. But it'll be legal in all 120 counties in the Commonwealth. Representative Decker, if Shelby County doesn't want it, then Shelby County can vote against it. The fiscal court can. But if Shelby County votes against it, then Shelbyville can decide to bring it back in. So it's ultimate home rule. It starts with being legal in a particular area, and then if the people of that county, if the fiscal court of that county doesn't want it, then they can vote to make it unlawful in that county, in that particular jurisdiction. I want to talk about 3 objections that I had, because when I ran for office, Representative Elliott, I didn't support this bill. I didn't support marijuana at all. I've never taken it. Thought people that used it were less than ambitious. Didn't want to be around them. My father would have had some words with me if I had done these types of things, and so I was against it. And I went and I met with some constituents in Crestwood, and I had this list of the reasons I was against it, and I'm going to tell you these reasons because I think some of you probably have some of these objections as well. In no particular order, I had banking. How are these companies going to bank? We don't need them to be totally cash heavy. How are they going to bank? That was a concern. It's no longer a concern. According to the Department of Treasury, there are over 500 banks in the United States that do business with medical marijuana companies, and there are over 150 credit unions that do the same. So banking is no longer a consideration. It used to be in this industry, in this space, but it's no longer a problem. Another problem I had, and this was the biggest problem I had, this violates federal law. How can I set up our Kentucky citizens to comply with state law, but then violate federal law? That felt wrong to me. Well, I did some studying, and again, I was against the bill. I did some studying, and there's something called a Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. And what is the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment? That has been placed onto the budgets by U.S. Congress every year since 2014. And here's what it does, Representative Heverin. What it does is it says any state that has a medical marijuana program, there will be no federal dollars enforcing federal law in those states, which effectively legalizes medical marijuana in states that have the program. Now, in Kentucky, where we don't have the program, obviously, the federal dollars are being spent for marijuana eradication and things of that nature. But in states that have medical marijuana programs, it doesn't violate federal law. That's the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, and I'd be happy to provide it to any member who seeks it out. That was important in my transformation and going from an opponent to a proponent of the bill. The last thing I would say, and I addressed this a little bit earlier, and I want to hit it hard here. I don't want a bunch of unsafe marijuana in Kentucky. I didn't want a bill that I supported to bring more marijuana to Kentucky, but I realized, let's not kid ourselves. We're not going to bring marijuana to Kentucky. It's here. And what this does, Chairman Massey, is it lets the mother who's getting it for her child, it lets the wife who's getting it for her husband, it lets her go to a place where the lights are bright, the products have been tested, and the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure and the law enforcement has the keys. Isn't that what we want? There'll be no fentanyl in these packages. There'll be no products that we don't know laced in here. This is safe product that was grown in Kentucky soil by Kentucky hands. That's what this product is. And so this bill's too tight to slouch toward recreational. But the best part about this bill is it lets sick people get safe product. Last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to turn it over, is this. I was campaigning in 2018. Some have heard me say this story. But it's not only about the hard facts. It's also about what does this mean for regular Kentuckians. And Representative Decker, I was campaigning in Anchorage, one of the wealthiest areas in Kentucky. And I saw on my phone that there was one registered voter in the House. He's an 85-year-old Republican man. And they knock on the door. He comes to the door, big 6'4", 6'5" guy, big old boy, still strapping at his age. And I said, hey, I'm Jason Nemus. I'm your state representative running for re-election. I started the pitch. He interrupts me. And I'm not going to tell you he started tearing up. The man started bawling. I'd never met the guy before. And he's bawling, Representative Stevenson. And I said, what's on your mind, buddy? Tell me what's on your mind. I've told this story a dozen times, and I'm getting teared up thinking of his face. And he points at the couch. And he says, my wife just died. We have 2 sons. And he starts whispering, as if someone's around. We're on the porch together. And he starts whispering, says, Jason, we don't break the law. That's not who I am. It's not who we are. But our sons, they have 2 sons. Our sons brought medical marijuana to their mother who was going through cancer treatment. In the last few months of her life, it enabled her to live. She could get off the couch. She could eat. And I thought to myself how righteous HB 136 is, how right it is. Had to get the bill right, and it's right. But how good is it? It's an unqualified good that that man's wife could live at the end of her life. Last story. I'm at a fundraiser at St. Margaret Mary, and a 43-year-old man walks up to me, and he's shaking. And he's nervous. He says, are you the sponsor of the medical marijuana bill? Yes, sir. And he's a strong man, shaking. Representative Kulkarni, he again starts crying. You've seen this. And says, I want to thank you for what you guys are doing up there in Frankfurt, because I've got multiple sclerosis. And a little bit of marijuana lets me provide for my family. It lets me go to work. It lets me take care of my wife and my children. And I couldn't do it without it. Here's 2 men. 2 fine, upstanding, law-abiding folk who are telling their state representative, I'm committing a felony to do better for myself and my family. And I say to you today, what would you do if you're one of those people? What would you do? I know what I would do. I know what every one of you would do, because I know your hearts. You'd do what needed to be done. You'd break the law. That's what I would do. I'm not going to lie. And so let's get it right. We had to get the right bill. This is the right bill. And this is the right thing to do for Kentucky. And with that, I ask Representative Gentry for his remarks.
Thank you, Representative Nemus. And I know you have said the argument is, the debates are over whether medicinal purpose is there. I'll tell you just a few moments here how I got involved in all this. Representative John Sims came to me in 2017. We both came in together, and he told me he was going to start working on this bill and asked me if I would be interested. And I looked at him and said, I want to do that. I don't know why, but I know, or I don't know how it helps, but I know it does. And the reason, in the 1990s, and some of you have heard me tell this story, but I used to travel around the country and compete and play golf, amputee golf, disabled golf. I lost my arm in 1993 in a work accident. I was 28 years old. Didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do. Had an elderly gentleman who was a world one-arm golfer, a world champion one-arm golfer. He came to my hospital bed, and he introduced me to disabled golf. It saved my life. So when I went and I played and competed in the sport, I met several people from all over the country. And back in the 1990s, we all had something in our golf bags. There were little pill bottles. A lot of us deal with chronic pain, amputees, nerve issues, brachioplexus, which is nerve injury type accidents. We have a lot of one-arm guys and gals that have brachioplexus issues. We have a variety of chronic pain issues, inflammation issues. And we started seeing people disappear in our little circuit, our little fraternity. And later we would hear stories, horrible stories. I could tell you many stories of friends of mine that had a variety of different issues that came from opioid addiction. And then in the early 2000s, you started seeing several of them come back. And you would hear their stories, incredible stories of despair, treatment, and coming back from the problems that they were in. And now all of a sudden they were back to work. They were doing well, back with their families. And you know what it was? Medical cannabis. It worked for them in their situations. They were receiving it in states where it was legal. Like I said, I could go on and on about these individual stories, but it was there, and I never knew why or how. I wasn't a user of it. Luckily for me, I do have chronic pain issues. Don't have them very bad yet. I'm a one-armed guy. I have what you would call a degenerative issue. You know, when you have one limb for many, many years, the other side starts breaking down. I tell everybody all the time, this is my bad arm. This is the arm I have all the ailments on, that I have partially torn rotator cuff. I have all these different issues. But so when I play golf, if I play 2-3 days in a row, I have a lot of challenges. I have used the product in cream form. That helps. It helps. I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know why or how. I have used CBD creams as well that are helpful. The cannabis creams do better for me. I don't know why. And if I bring that cream back into Kentucky, I'm breaking the law. And it shouldn't be like that. And the only other issue I'm going to talk about is this particular substance, cannabis, is a Schedule I drug at federal level. It's not debatable that we're moving in a direction, this nation, decriminalization of the product, okay? If it gets rescheduled and it becomes legal to transport product commercially across state borders, it's important that we have an industry already in place. Because I've been told by several people that are in this business for a few years that Kentucky would be a great place, and it could be an export product. Because of our geographic location, because of our unique climate, because of the accessibility and cheap accessibility to water, it could be a future export crop when this gets rescheduled. You don't hear that talked about much, but I don't want to see Kentucky miss the boat on that either. Thank you.
Mr. Crawford?
Just give me one at a time. Chairman Massey and committee members, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak about House Bill 136. I'm here today on behalf of myself and Kentuckians for medicinal marijuana. I was born and raised in Mason County. My home and farm are in Orangeburg, the same community my family has lived in for generations. I love Kentucky. I grew up playing sports, fishing, and hunting with hound dogs. Kentucky boy through and through. I had a great childhood. I had the world's greatest wife, a loving family, and great friends. My life changed April 14th, 1994. That night, I was riding around with my friends, and the car hit a 1,800-pound milk cow that was in the road. It busted through the T-top and landed directly on top of my head. This unfortunate accident broke my neck in 3 places. Since that day, I am known as a quadriplegic. This country boy can't chase hounds anymore. 1 second changed my life. And 1 second can change your life too. It can happen to any of us. Just think. 1 second, you're injured. God has always had me in the palm of his hand. There were other plans meant for me. Now I'm here at the state capitol in Frankfort. wearing a tie, trying to get medical cannabis legal for sick people. Medical cannabis relaxes my continuous, uncontrollable muscle spasms. Medical cannabis relieves my constant chronic pain. Cannabis helps me. My well-respected Kentucky doctors support my choice in medicine. Medical cannabis allows me to be a more productive member of society and gives me a better quality of life. It helps me be a better husband, son, and friend than the pharmaceutical route. There's not one of you on this committee that would surely think I'd be better off taking opioids. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. One person dies every 19 minutes in the United States from an FDA-approved drug. Not one person has ever died using cannabis. Medical cannabis is already helping lots of other sick Kentuckians. But we need House Bill 136 to pass so that we aren't criminals. We can't forget about the little children with epilepsy or those living with chronic pain. We can't forget about Kentucky's cancer patients or the veterans that have served us. We all deserve legal access to a safe product without fear of the law. Don't make sick people criminals. We have enough to deal with being sick. We need the General Assembly to pass House Bill 136 this year. 38 states plus Washington, D.C., and 30 countries have legal medical cannabis. Does Kentucky got to be last? I mean, we got to be last. House Bill 136 is the answer. It's the right thing to do, and it's the right time to do it. We need your help. Please vote yes on House Bill 136. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Representative Bratcher. We have a second by Representative Elliott. We do have a few questions. Representative Decker?
Yes, thank you. I have been hoping to be able to vote yes on this drug for many reasons. But I have on this bill, I have a couple of questions that still linger. You talked about the Rohrabacher Amendment, and I remember when there was a debate about cannabis oil, and I think at the time, and maybe it's the same here, so enforcement is not going to be in Kentucky for those with license. So is it by coordinates? How do you, is this not going to be a license for anybody and everybody to grow marijuana? Can you explain how that's going to work?
Yes, this is going to be, I want to read the Rohrabacher Farr Amendment real quickly if I can, because that was so important. And I know you as a lawyer, it's important to you as well. I hope it was for me. It says none of the fund, and this has been in every budget since 2014 from the United States Congress, and it's also in the current budget. None of the funds made available in this act to the Department of Justice may be used with respect to the states of, and then it lists all the states that have medical marijuana programs, to prevent such states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of medical marijuana. And in our bill, we have similar protections as well, but that's the federal law that I read from there. So how it will work is the Department of Health is the agency to which we have assigned responsibility, and they will be licensing the growers and the processors and the dispensaries, and also the safety testing components. And there will not be a proliferation of them. It will only be as many as are necessary. In the initial bill, we said it had to be 15, and so that was one per ad district. But we've left it to the Department of Health to make the determination as to how many there ought to be. We don't want to oversaturation, no doubt about that. We want it to just meet the need. So that I hope that maybe that answers your question.
Could I have one more?
Please.
Quickly. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I have a friend, most people in the room, a lot of people know him. He had his nose removed. He's had 18 surgeries. He's left with a hole in his face. He's been in chronic pain. He has never taken an opioid. He has taken nothing but cannabis oil. It stops the inflammation. It stops his pain. It's been an amazing thing for him. The man who produces it stopped his son from having epilepsy. So my question is, why can we not use cannabis oil? I think you said, Representative, that this helps you more, the medical marijuana. Is that what you said? And so I'm wondering, is it the THC level? Does it become medical marijuana at a certain THC level? So it's the same exact thing? Just how is that different and why? And perhaps it's just him, but can the cannabis oil work?
I think Eric's going to answer, and then
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
supplement if I need to.
CBD, cannabis oil can contain THC. Cannabis oil in general contains CBD or THC. You're talking about CBD, aren't you, Representative Decker, ma'am? Okay, it doesn't work for everyone. I've tried it 100 times, experimented with it a lot. It did nothing for my spasms. It did nothing for my pain. In fact, I found out it was harmful for me because when I went and got my glaucoma checked, my pressure raised over the limit, and I found out 20% of people that use over 40 milligrams of CBD, there's been studies, it raises their pressure, and I'm documented as one of those people. But it didn't help my spasms, it didn't help my pain. It was just like drinking water. And I would use 100 milligrams at a time, and that's quite a bit.
Representative, I'll tell you what Dr. Block said when he testified before this committee 2 years ago. He's a doctor from Florida. And what he said was, it works for some people, just the CBD. And if it does, that's wonderful. But it doesn't work for everyone. And what most physicians do in this space is they start low and then they slowly meet the needs of, and as they do in other areas, meet the needs of a particular patient. Sometimes higher levels of THC are needed, which is why the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation and the Epilepsy Society, both two national groups, endorse House Bill 136. So it's sometimes it's needed for the individual.
Thank you.
Representative Kulkarni.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Rep. Nemus, for bringing this. I'm just a couple of quick questions. I'm a co-sponsor on the bill. I want to thank you for your hard work year after year on this issue. I was glad to see the provisions in your bill about card holder, I guess the registered individual who would be eligible for the medical cannabis. Designated caregivers would also be, I guess, exempted from any kind of criminal action.
Provided that they're operating under the auspices of the Act, yes.
Right, they're providing the
when they go outside, they'll lose their card and hopefully be prosecuted.
Okay. And that leads me into sort of the criminality portion of it, and I want to address something that Rep. Gentry brought up, which is the scheduling of cannabis, which is a remnant of the 1972 Schaefer Commission, which had temporarily placed it in Schedule 1 and never took it off, which is why we don't have any studies about the medical efficacy or benefits to date. And it's also why that commission, by the way, also called for decriminalization of cannabis. But it's also why we have a situation now where people are sitting in jail, potentially, or have convictions on their record for this, but we are allowing certain folks to be able to benefit from the medical efficacy of cannabis. So I want to know, is there anything in this legislation, or is there, and this could be further conversation, I understand if it's not, for expungement provisions or anything that would kind of level the playing field, just to sort of address the war on drugs and the devastating impact it's had on certain communities.
Yeah, so this bill is only medical cannabis, and so if anyone is using it for medicinal purposes, then they would, anyone who's using it for medicinal purposes who has a card, who has a bona fide relationship with a physician, and the physician's been lined up, and they get it from a dispensary, product is double sealed and tested, as long as they're under that apparatus, then they're going to be fine. With respect to the larger question that you've asked, that's not this bill. There are a number of things that we've done. Representative Moser and I have been working on it for a long time. I know Representative Bratcher as well, to bring much more treatment options to people who have addictions that may or may not be related to a medical need or a medical reason. So those are other bills that we work on, but this bill is only about the person who has a medical need, as identified by their physician, and already following all the rules that I've already identified.
Thank you.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. I have a question, and then I'd like to just speak on the bill, if I may. just a quick question. Have you had conversations with KBML? How do they feel about this provision?
Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure. We've talked to them about regulating the physicians and creating the list of physicians. I have not asked them if they support it or not. I know the Kentucky Medical Association, which is the Association of Physicians, does oppose the bill. I don't think, to my knowledge, Representative Moser, KBML hasn't taken a position. I don't know if they have.
Yeah,
but
I don't know
did
for sure either.
But I have talked to their leadership about the governing parts of the bill.
Okay. Well, I mean, the feedback I get from physicians is that they know that there are medicinal qualities, and I don't think that we're all that far apart, actually. They know that there are medicinal qualities, but they just don't know how to dose it. They don't know how to prescribe it, and they from my feedback is they don't want to be in the middle of it. So, I want cannabis products to be dispensed and dosed and to really understand the qualifying medical conditions that it can help with. We need to know what the drug interactions are. I think that research will allow for things like the study of cannabis or CBD to really fully understand the differences, why it works, Mr. Crawford, for some people and not for others. I think that there are still some questions that we need to answer. Like I said, I don't think that we're as far apart as it seems, maybe, or that we. This proposal, I have concerns that it creates a bureaucracy, a pretty big government bureaucracy, and I don't know how it's funded exactly. It seems to me that it's taxpayer funded. So, for those reasons, I have some concerns. I've talked for a long time about research and the need for research, and I actually have a proposal for research. It would, of course, advance the study and research of all cannabis products, cannabinoids, for all the various potential medical conditions. It pulls all the stakeholders, all the researchers, medical professionals together in one place. I think it would be a really good thing for Kentucky to be a leader in research. It would even expand the application process for the public, for the general public, to be able to, if they wanted to participate in clinical research, to be able to be assessed and screened and put in the right research protocol. So I think that we're all moving in the right direction. I think we're hoping to get to a good place where we can actually dose and prescribe, like I've said, and really understand how it works. My proposal would increase clinical trials and expedite research, hopefully getting, like I said, to the point that we can actually call it a medicine. There are some states, University of Mississippi has had a cultivation center and has done research since 1968, and they did research first, and only, I think, 2 years ago, actually got to the point where they legalized medical marijuana because they knew how it acted. They knew how it helped individuals. So that's my idea of how we should move into this space. Like I said, I think we both want the same thing, but I still have a couple of concerns. I do appreciate all of the work that you've done on this, and I'll keep talking to the KBML. I'm going to continue having conversations about this. Thank you,
Representative Moser. I appreciate that, and we're trying to get to the same place. You and I have talked about this a great deal. I would note I have a lot of the same concerns that you have. I mean, I'm not without concerns here. And that's why I grabbed this bill by the horns and made it and worked with a lot of people to get it what I think it is where it is today. And I think it's the best. I think it's the best bill in the country because we've stolen from the best areas. But I would note that there are a lot of physicians who don't want to be involved. There are some that do want to be involved. The physicians that don't want to be involved don't have to be. In fact, if you want to be involved, you have to affirmatively take a step to go to the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure to get approved. So for the physicians that don't want to be, they won't have to be. The dosage issues, those are certainly issues for not only medical cannabis, for a lot of other medications. There are dosage guidelines that are published. We have 37 states, obviously, so they're not just flying out willy nilly, just figuring out on the fly. They have standards that our Department of Health and the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure, or Kentucky Board of Nursing, will latch onto and improve. I wanted to talk about the funding real quickly because I think that's really important, and that is the funding starts on Section 29 and goes through, I think, Section 35. And so and I'll just be very brief about that. We have a trust fund that's established that funds the administration of the program, not only at the Department of Health level, but also at law enforcement level, because that'll be needed. But for research, and I think this is extremely important, on page 84 of the committee sub, in Section 31, 2.5% of the monies that come from the license fees and the excise go toward the University of Kentucky for more research on medical cannabis. I do want to highlight what you've said about the University of Mississippi, but they just about 3 weeks ago went legal. So they've used that research and realized that it's helpful to their people as well. So we do have the research component in here. I tried to keep it low. I mean, 2.5% is not a great deal, but the reason I wanted to keep it low is because, unfortunately, until Schedule 1 is changed, this is taken off Schedule 1, insurance companies don't pay for it. I'll be able to afford it. People like me will be okay if my son ever needs it. And for the record, I don't know anybody in my personal life outside of people who I've met. Now, Eric's in my personal life now as a really close friend, but outside the people who I've met as a representative, I don't know anybody who this would help. I want to put that on the record. But if my son would need it, I would be able to afford it. But someone who's indigent wouldn't. And so this funding mechanism tries to provide as much access to indigent people as possible, which is why I'd put 50% in research, but we have to try to get it to people who are in need.
Representative Stevenson.
Just one question. You said there are 4 ways to participate. You could be a farmer, process, a dispensary, or you could be a safety organization. And I spoke with the minorities for medical marijuana, and they said one of the big issues that they have is that it's difficult for them to get in the business now that it's legal. And they recommended that something be done because they were in jail when it wasn't legal. So do you have any provisions for any set-asides for minority business owners?
So I'm going to get to directly answer your question, but let me put up a preface first, and that is I make no changes to this bill without vetting it to the people who are key people who bring other voters, because I don't want to lose votes. I'm trying to pick them up. So I'm talking to those people to make sure that we can get that provision in. I have 2 provisions that would allow, just like we have in many other aspects of government, a percentage of contracts would go to minority owners, business owners. And so I'm talking to a number of people about making sure everybody feels comfortable with that. I do. So it's not in the bill as it exists, Representative, but it's something that we're talking about as an amendment.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've been discussing this issue for 5 or 6 years back when I was chairman of this committee. I think we had the first hearing on medical marijuana, and the same question keeps popping up in my mind out of concern that this might morph into legalization, total legalization of marijuana. Are there any medical conditions for which medical marijuana may not be prescribed to treat?
Yeah. So, Representative Fisher, thank you for that question. This is something that we've discussed a number of times, you and me, but also a number of other people. And so one way of looking at it is to say, let the physician decide. That's where I come down. I think the patient and the physician should make their decision. That's not what's in the bill. I want to be very clear. I want the physician to make that decision, not in the bill. What's in the bill is you have to have one of 4 conditions. And so if it's not one of those 4 conditions, then you can't get it. Now, those conditions were the ones that we had in the bill in 2020. That was Representative Petrie's or Representative Goforth's amendment. I don't remember. So unless you have one of those 4 conditions, you can't get it. So your question is, are there any conditions that you can't get it for? Let me turn that around and say you can only get it for 4 conditions.
Where is it in the bill? follow-up page on the bill is that?
I'm finding that out. It's a qualifying medical conditions. I'm getting that to you.
It's on page 4 of the original bill.
Yeah, so page 4 defines it, but I think on page, was it 70? 75. Okay. I said, in my mind it was 73. I'm glad I didn't say that. On page 75, Representative.
All right, seeing no further questions. Did you have a question, Representative Lewis?
Comment, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Nemes, Gentry, thank you all for your hard work on this. I see Representative Sims back there hiding too, and of course Eric and Jamie and Julie. Thank you all for your tenacity and dedication on this issue. It is very important. Representative Gentry, you brought up a great point, I thought, talking about the abuse of opioids and being in pharmacy now. And when CBD oil started coming out and, children were coming to the store and seniors for their arthritis and just giving people additional options, treatment options that work for them, it means more than anything. And it becomes really a patient access and a patient safety issue. Representative Nemes, you said if you had a family member sick, what would you do? And I think we're all in the same boat that you would do whatever it took to get your family member relief. In my district, when I polled it polled 88%. For that reason, and because I believe in this cause, I'm a yes. Thank you.
Representative Fisher has another question.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, on page 75, it says the list of qualifying medical conditions shall, at a minimum, include the following 5 conditions. So it's not limited to these 5 conditions. The list can include others. Is that what this bill says?
My intent, Representative Fisher, for it to be limited here, and then the board that's set up can remove any that are on here or add as the science that comes in. So that language, at a minimum, it was not in my mind, and I'm going to remove it from the bill.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further questions, Madam Secretary, please call the roll for House Bill 136 as amended by House Committee Substitute 1.
Representative Banta.
Explain my vote.
Yes.
Representative Nemes, 3 years ago when we first talked about this, I said, no, no, no. You have made every change that I could conceivably think of. You did everything but make it an enema. And I really appreciate everything that you have done, and you listened to people and you did it. So for that reason, I'm a yes.
Representative Blanton. Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Decker.
Yes. I think yes. Explain my vote.
Yes.
This is my
Don't let her explain it.
second hardest vote. I'm concerned because I talked to my doctor about this, and he told me that honestly he could not prescribe this medication because he is not sure of the harm that he might do. I love this bill that Representative Mosier has filed. I hope it goes forward. I do worry about the taxpayer-funded bureaucracy, but I don't want to stop the bill at this time. I think you've done an amazing job. Mr. Crawford, I appreciate your testimony a great deal. I want you to have what you need to be comfortable. Can't imagine being in that condition. So I think at this point, I vote yes.
Representative Elliott.
May I explain, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to compliment you, Representative Nemes. Also want to compliment you, Representative Gentry, and also my former colleague, John Sims, who is here, who worked very hard on this bill. And also want to compliment the Crawfords for really excellent citizen advocacy. I know someday you probably don't want to be here in the Capitol, but I'm going to miss you if this ever goes through, because I think you've been here as much as I have over these years, advocating for this. I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to vote aye. I think that in terms of the bureaucracy, we need a bureaucracy because we need to regulate this in a form that doesn't allow it to go to recreational marijuana, which I do not support. So I think we have to have a large government apparatus here to make sure that it's monitored. And so for those reasons, I'll vote aye.
Representative Fisher.
I'll explain my yes vote pending looking at the floor amendments that may be filed to this. I'll vote yes to get out of committee.
Thank you, Joe.
Representative Hebron.
Yes, and quickly explain my vote because I know it is getting to a late hour. I take my vote today. Yes, I'm a yes vote. I take my vote today in honor of baby Colby and her mom Alex in Litchfield. And I take the vote today in honor of my former constituent, Julie Cantwell, and her husband and her son and their family. Eric and Michelle, thank you all for all the advocacy you all have done. You all have been here every week, and I greatly appreciate that. And Representative Nemes, thank you for your hard work. I've been so impressed as your fellow colleague and seeing how you've worked with so many people in order to get this through. It's very impressive, and I'm so excited to see this come to the Senate and to see Senator Westerfield get to vote on this. So thank you for being a good colleague and a good member and really being a passionate advocate for this bill.
Representative Cole Carney.
Briefly explain, Chairman.
Yes.
I vote yes, and I want to thank you again, Rep. Nemes, Rep. Gentry, and John Sims back there, and Mr. Crawford for your tireless efforts over the years to bring this bill as far as it's gotten. I do have a lot of people that I know are impacted by this. There's constituents in my district that come up to me all the time talking about how much pain they're suffering, how much they need this in their lives. And so for all of them, I vote yes today. Thank you.
Representative Lewis. Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Can I explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Representative Nemes, this is not a criticism, my friend. I know what you've got to do to get a bill across the line, but I hate this bill. I think it's too restrictive. I think it's too narrow. I think it's too much government. But for the third time in committee, I'm a yes.
Representative Minter.
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes.
This is my third yes vote. I would like the next one to be my very last vote on this because I want it to go all the way. And I want it to go all the way for my favorite citizen lobbyist. I'm going to miss you terribly, but I want you to get on with your lives when we get this done for you. For Representative Gentry and for every tearful person I ever met at the door. It's for you. Thank you.
Representative Mosier.
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes.
I'm a no today, and I guess I'm the only one. But I'm getting texts as I sit here from doctors who are saying the APA is against this because it exacerbates PTSD and other psychiatric disorders, and the ophthalmologists, say it makes glaucoma worse. I just think that we need to know for sure before we call something a medicine. If the FDA would take a stand on this and actually make it a medicine like they do any other natural product, then we wouldn't have to change 39 statutes and create this bureaucracy. And so that's what I want to get to. I want to get to the point where we have a medicine like everything else that does not take a government bureaucracy to run. So for those reasons, unfortunately, I am a no today. I do appreciate all of your work.
Yes, I would want to say that some ophthalmologists are for it, including Mr. Crawford's. I want to also mention the name of Shannon and Tim and Chris, who are also here. Their names haven't been mentioned as being people who are on the team to get this done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a yes.
Yes.
Briefly explain.
Yes.
Doctors prescribe far more dangerous medicines than marijuana. And like every medical decision, if a doctor says the patient needs it, that's a doctor-patient privilege. And then for all the veterans for whom medical marijuana works, I vote yes.
Yes. 15. There being 15 yes votes, 1 no vote, and 0 pass votes, the same will be reported with favorable expression that the same shall pass on the House floor. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your indulgence of time. And everyone have a good evening.